Rain in New York. Our 24-hour coverage of this attack on America is going full steam right now. And as you can see, this sudden storm has forced rescuers to stop working. And right now, these are exclusive pictures of damage beyond comprehension. Yet some 1,000 firefighters, paramedics, and volunteers are determined to push on.
And in Washington, another site of the attack on America. This is the Pentagon this hour. Again this morning, we're live in New York and Washington.
Good morning, I'm Carol Lynn.
And I'm Jonathan Mann. Thanks for joining us.
It is a busy hour. We have an enormous amount of information to share with you, from the latest on the investigation to the heartbreaking search for the missing. Also, a unique look inside a fire station, a firehouse that has lost as many as 30 people.
And a trip to Berryville, Virginia, a town like fictional Mayberry, to see how small-town America is holding up.
But first, let's take a look at the latest developments. President Bush has declared this a national day of prayer and remembrance for many of the victims.
And in the Philippine capital, Manila, police working with U.S. agents raided a hotel room. Residue of bomb-making material has been found. Also on the investigative front, several arrests in New York and suspicions of another attempted hijacking.
That's right, Jonathan. But first, let's also remind you that in Kabul, Afghanistan, fears of an attack from the United States, which has said leaders are believed to be harboring suspected terrorist Osama bin Laden. Much more on that in just a moment, but first we are going to go to New York City. It is a city so different than just a few days ago. Our Garrick Utley has been there much of the night. Morning, Garrick.
Thank you. Morning. Thank you, Carol. Different in many ways. Of course, there was the destruction since Tuesday, but those people who have been here in New York have also noticed that this week has been glorious in terms of weather. Warm, upper 70s, blue sky, no clouds in the sky. And yet this evening, or last night, Thursday night, into the morning hours or Friday morning, that changed. A big thunderstorm moved through. A lightning storm has interrupted the rescue work effort down there, which you see, the cloud of smoke and dust, which still rises. 3 days after the incidents, the tragedy there. But the rescue workers are still prepared to continue their searches. Unfortunately, on Thursday, they did not recover any survivors from the disaster. The city officials here in New York have estimated that more than 4,760 is the number they've offered, are missing there. And you look at those pictures, and once again, we've seen them before, you understand why. And those are some of the rescue workers who have been crawling through the debris today, working very carefully because there's great risk to them of falling debris, falling walls, of falling into holes that they can't see. In fact, that's happened several times. There have been some serious injuries to rescue workers who had to be hospitalized with back injuries and other abrasions. Nevertheless, it continues. But along with the rescue efforts, New Yorkers have been doing other things to observe the tragedy. There have been a number of vigils, services, informal, spontaneous ones. Last night it was in Washington Square. That is Wednesday night. On Thursday night it was in Union Square nearby. The scene is always the same. It is people gathering in community. There are candles, there are American flags, there are some prayers, there's some music. Most of all, there's just getting together and communing and being close. And what's happening there, or what happened there in this small gathering, or relatively small gathering, will be seen on Friday in churches across the nation. Because as you've reported, Carol, this is going to be the National Day of Prayer and Remembrance. And in Washington, D.C., at the National Cathedral, the President will be participating with other dignitaries and officials and people from the Washington community to lead a service of prayer and remembrance, and this will reverberate and be echoed across the nation. Indeed, almost every day of this week since the tragedy on Tuesday, there have been nonstop prayers and certainly a lot of remembering. And as far as New Yorkers are concerned and their daily lives of getting about the big city of New York City, well, there's going to be some improvement. What you're seeing down there where the tragedy occurred is the southern tip of Manhattan called Lower Manhattan. That's been a no-go area. Now, since Tuesday, a large part of southern Manhattan has been cordoned off from 14th Street below. Well, now city officials are saying they're going to ease up, and the boundary for traffic at 14th Street there in the upper part of the map you're seeing on your screen is being extended down to Canal Street, which runs through parts of Chinatown and Little Italy. So another big chunk of lower Manhattan is being given back to the automobile, and no doubt on Friday there will be traffic jams galore once the cars can take to the streets. But you can also see how much of lower Manhattan is still a no-go area as far as general traffic is concerned. So that is really where we are, and an interesting test for New Yorkers on traffic will occur tomorrow. President Bush comes to the city following that service in Washington, D.C. He'll attend a service here. Normally when presidents come, there are traffic jams everywhere. It is a nightmare because the motorcade has to come in under tight security. This time, though, the White House has given no indication as to the precise movements of the president, where he's going to be at what time, obviously for security reasons. It's also going to be interesting to see whether special precautions are taken or measures are taken so that perhaps this time he doesn't tie up traffic the way other presidents have on their visits. Maybe he'll use a helicopter, who knows, to get to the lower tip of Manhattan. New Yorkers can only wish that. Anyway, he's expected to be here only for a short period of time before he goes back to Washington. That's how Friday is shaping up here in New York City. Back to you in Atlanta.
Garrick, I know we had to pull you inside from your perch on the rooftop because of the weather out there. We do certainly hope it clears up for the rescuers who are working down south in lower Manhattan. I'm just wondering, now that things are beginning to slowly get back a little bit more towards normal in New York, is it beginning to sink in? Is it beginning to sink in with New Yorkers how few bodies and how few people alive they are pulling out of the wreckage?
Absolutely. There's a very painful human process at work. We've been reporting, we'll continue to report, how people gather here at various centers to exchange information, ask for information. They come with pictures of their friends and relatives who are lost. They want to make any kind of information. They're always talking in the present tense about their loved ones as if they're still alive. I know he or she is down in the rubble. We want them to come back. And officials really aren't saying that hope should be abandoned. They're letting people go through the natural process. And at what time, at what day, and how many days after Tuesday will these New Yorkers have to accept, or will they accept, or want to accept, that perhaps their loved ones have been lost? Nobody can put a time on this. This is a decision, the most painful human decision each human being has to make. But I suspect over these coming days, it's a decision that many will have to make. Many of the friends and relatives of those 4,760 people, at least that number, according to city officials, who are missing.
Yeah, Garrick, it certainly made all the more painful for so many people who actually heard from their loved ones after the first plane went into the first tower. People confirming with them over the cell phone, I'm okay, I'm getting out of the building, and they haven't been heard from since. So certainly the mayor of New York trying to prepare people for the worst.
I think they are prepared for it, but it's going to take, I suspect, several more days, probably the first part of next week, and then the evidence will speak for itself. Right. Once again, no survivors were pulled from the disaster area there yesterday on Thursday.
All right. Thank you very much, Garrick Utley. We're going to go to Ground Zero in just a few minutes. Alessio Vinci is covering the rescuers there, but first, right now, to Jonathan.
New York officials are expected to announce shortly when they'll reopen area airports after suspicions about another hijacking attempt shut them down yesterday. Authorities say they've arrested 8 suspects, some with fake IDs and one with a phony pilot's license. CNN's national correspondent Mike Betcher wraps up the latest in the global manhunt for terrorists.
As airports opened across the country, police were watching closely. A total of 8 people were arrested at 2 of New York's airports. At New York's Kennedy Airport, one man who was carrying a fake pilot ID was arrested. 4 or 5 other people trying to check in for flights at Kennedy were detained for questioning, either because they were carrying false documents or were in the country illegally. At New York's LaGuardia Airport, police detained at least 2 other men for questioning. After the spate of arrests and detentions, all New York area airports were closed again. A few other airports in the U.S. have also shut down once more because of security concerns. Attorney General John Ashcroft said FBI agents are making progress in their investigation, adding that they have identified the hijackers aboard all 4 ill-fated jets.
The total number of hijackers, to our best estimate and our best knowledge, given the information at this time, on the 4 planes that crashed was at least 18. Unless contradicted by evidence which we wouldn't anticipate, 2 planes had 5 hijackers and 2 other planes had 4 hijackers each.
Mohammed Atta, shown in this photograph, and Marwan al-Shari are 2 of the men on that list of 18, according to federal investigative sources. Both held United Arab Emirate passports. but it's not clear if they are actually citizens of that country. The lives the two men led are the objects of an intensive international investigation, stretching from Florida to Germany. In Hamburg, Germany, federal police launched an extensive search of an apartment shared by Mohammed Atta and Marwan al-Shari last February. During an additional search of another Hamburg apartment, a woman was taken away for questioning. She clutched a baby in her arms as German police tried to hide her with a sheet. During the night, a total of 8 apartments were searched in the Hamburg area. Back in the U.S. in Pompano Beach, Florida, FBI agents converged on a small rental car company called Warrix. Records show that Atta rented 2 automobiles at that location.
Well, the first contract, he only put on 200 miles, 254 miles or something like that. That was very small. That's exceptionally small. The next contract was the 2-week rental, and he drove 1,915 miles, which he had told me he'd been over on the West Coast. He called me from over on the West Coast.
4,000 FBI agents spread across the country knocked on hundreds of doors trying to track down others who were involved in the conspiracy. Before the job is finished, they will have knocked on tens of thousands more. Mike Betcher, CNN, Atlanta.
Authorities say one of the biggest leads in the investigation is coming from a strip club in Daytona Beach, Florida. The manager told FBI agents 3 men were in the club Monday night making threatening comments.
America's going to see bloodshed tomorrow, and within 10 hours, you're seeing planes crashing into the Trade Center, a plane crashing into the Pentagon. We didn't think anything of it until the next day, but then the next day it came down on us like a ton of bricks. We told them that we had 3 gentlemen of Middle Eastern descent had made these comments. We have their driver's licenses, we have their credit cards, and then also a Quran was left here.
Cap promised authorities not to reveal the men's names, but he says they lived in Central Florida in communities between Daytona Beach and Orlando. Another key piece of evidence in the investigation will soon be in the hands of experts. Searchers say they have found the black box from the airliner that crashed in Pennsylvania. Investigators have said they also received signals from the flight recorder at the Pentagon crash site. National transportation safety experts have been sent to New York, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon to assist in locating and analyzing the cockpit voice recorders and flight data recorders.
Jonathan, now that we've had a chance to take a look at the latest in the investigation, let's go to what's happening in terms of rescues down in Lower Manhattan. Alessio Vinci standing by there. Alessio, we've got you on the phone right now because our signal is being disrupted by the weather also disrupting those rescue efforts. Are workers back to work?
Yes, they are. The Port Authority officials are telling us now that the rescue operation has resumed. Rain, thunder, and lightning overnight forced more than 1,000 rescue workers to temporarily suspend their operation. But as I said, we can confirm now that the rescue operation is back on. However, chances to find anybody alive are growing dim at this point. Rescue workers, however, they say they continue to hope that perhaps underneath that pile of rubble, somebody, perhaps in an air pocket or underneath a large piece of concrete, may still be alive and that they have to continue their work. There is still, of course, also concern for the safety of the rescue workers themselves. Some of the buildings nearby, what was the World Trade Center, may have suffered some structural damage, and there is, of course, concern about their stability. One of those buildings is a tall American Express building. Rescue workers used it as a